I think everybody on this trip had a point that hit them hard, and a place that hit them hard the most, and something that really touched them. And for me, I know it was Kibera.
In November of 2005, our team made a 3-day stop in Nairobi, Kenya. Our primary objective was a visit to the Kibera Slums, Africa's largest, packing in nearly 1 million people. About 1 in 4 citizens of Nairobi live here.
We traveled into the heart of Nairobi and into the slums of Kibera.
Nairobi is such a developed city that you don't expect there to be such intense poverty because it doesn't look like it's going to be there. Then I think it was definitely the hardest part of the trip for me because whereas in Uganda and Sudan we had been seeing work being done, in Kibera we had a real clear picture of all that still needs to be done and all that hasn't been addressed.
The needs in Kibera are truly staggering. 30% are infected with AIDS, which means 90% of the people are either infected or directly affected by the epidemic. 100,000 children are orphans.
There's just so many children. The conditions that people live in are some of the most, they are the most unsanitary I've ever seen. When you walk in, you see that the entire road is filled with trash. There's just everything imaginable on the ground and every kind of waste imaginable on the ground. There's these little trickling streams of sewage that just run along the side of the street. And there's a fairly large kind of stream bed that runs right through the middle of it, and it's just filled with trash. It's absolutely covered in waste. I think one thing that surprised us was that there's a lot of industry. It's not just a residential slum, it's a business and community place. There were hotels, there were small businesses, there were stores. For a lot of people, that's their entire world. And it's all set in this incredibly neglected place. We saw people brewing beer, which is, I don't even know what's in it, but we heard from some of the people that were taking us around that it wouldn't be safe to drink just because they use a lot of different chemicals and not all of them are safe for human consumption. But it sells there. We saw fish that are taken from the local stream, which runs down from the slum itself and has a lot of the waste in it.
57% of the landlords are politicians or government officers. But the slum is unrecognized, so the landlords provide no latrines, water, or electricity, and don't collect rubbish or pave the roads. There are only 3 public schools in the vast area.
5 toilets for every 5,000 people, and you have to pay to use those toilets. And there's no running water. There's pumps, and you have to pay to use the pumps. And so they have flying toilets, which is where you go in a bag, and then you fold up the bag and you chuck it.
And so you can imagine what that does to the streets and the way it smells when you walk in, and the trash that you see is everywhere, and there are kids running around barefoot, and you know that it's just not a safe place for kids to live.
Disease is just rampant through there, and there's typhoid and malaria and AIDS. Everywhere we went, children came out of these little shanty shacks and came up to the side of the road where we were and just waved and said, "How are you? How are you?" And we came into this compound and we met Mama Margaret. And Mama Margaret was this lady that had the most strength from any person I have ever met.
Lahash has partnered with Mama Margaret's Tenderfeet Children's Center. This is a school with 6 volunteer teachers taking care of 137 orphan children, abandoned by AIDS or with parents in prison. The kids receive free classes during the day and are served a lunch of porridge, which for some is their only meal of the day.
She chose to move to Kibera because she wanted to work there, and she keeps orphans in her home as just part of what she does. It's just part of her work. She said there's 1,000 more at least just in the immediate area that could be part of their school and would like to be part of their school if it was a possibility, but they just can't facilitate it.
And these children were learning in almost complete darkness, but you walk in and you stand there as your eyes adjust to the light, and these children reach out and they grab your hand and they sing to you. Seeing those children and looking around and seeing the darkness and the smell of sewer and hearing their laughter and wondering, why am I seeing this? Because at one point, is it your responsibility to look at something like that and not do something or not be affected by it? Because I know I've heard about slums, I've been taught about slums, and now I've seen a slum, and I don't understand how people could not look at something or have the knowledge of it and not do something about it.
The need there was probably the greatest that we saw, and it's hard to imagine how big the slums are, how many people live there, and what kind of conditions they live in unless you actually see it, but it was overwhelming. I think we all left feeling like, what do we do? Where do you even start on such a huge problem, on such huge need? Even with just education alone, let alone sanitation or shelter. I mean, how do you even begin to address the problem?
Mama Margaret and the kids of Kibera need your help. For just $8,000, Margaret can buy the 6 classrooms they currently rent, provide schooling and food for the 137 orphans, and pay the teachers and give them essential training. This amount will increase the health and literacy of the children and will boost the HIV/AIDS awareness in Kibera. Margaret and the Tenderfeet Children's Center believe that long-term, holistic solutions are the best hope for Kibera. This means providing physical, emotional, and spiritual love and care for each kid.